A lot of you asked for the UK, but once I started digging, there were so many twisted, disgusting cases that it felt wrong to cram them all into one video. So we're doing this properly, country by country, starting with England. Oh man, England made my skin crawl. The scariest part isn't even the violence. It's how normal it looks at first. A chat, a friend, a date. One message is all it takes. One click, one yes, and you're gone. Forever. This isn't for the faint of heart. Let's dig into the darkest side of England's internet. It's 2014, and the internet is basically swallowing everything. Like, it's not just online time anymore. It's where life happens. And in Surrey, England, there's this family, the Bednars. 4 kids, normal household, decent life. The oldest is Breck. He's 14. And honestly, he's not some troubled kid stereotype. He's the kind of teenager parents feel safe about. Church on Sundays, Air Training Corps, good at school, good with tech, plays Battlefield, Call of Duty, all that. And then he meets this guy online. His name is Lewis Danes. He's 18, from Essex. And in those gaming communities, he acts like he's a big deal. Like the older, cooler, I know things kind of person. Breck and Lewis click fast. Same games, same computer stuff, same energy, but their lives are nothing alike. Breck's got a tight family, money, stability. Lewis didn't. His parents split when he was little. He got bounced around. Care homes, different relatives, never really landing anywhere. Didn't fit in at school. Didn't get along with people. Later on, people said he might have had Asperger's, but nothing was diagnosed, nothing was treated, just a lot of stuff building up in the background. And once Lewis is in Breck's life, things start changing. Breck gets weirdly distant, starts isolating, stops going to church, doesn't want to hang with family. It's like the only thing he cares about is talking to Lewis. And if he can't, he gets annoyed. Like, angry. His mom, Lauren, clocks it. She tries to cut it off, blocks Lewis, limits Breck's laptop, tries to control what sites he can use. But you already know how that goes. Teenagers always find a way. So the contact keeps going. And the parents get more and more uneasy because it doesn't feel like a normal friendship anymore. It feels like someone's in his head. They eventually call the police and basically say, "We think our son is being groomed." And what makes it worse is Lewis is feeding Breck these obvious lies. Like, first he tells him he works for the US government, which is already insane because he's never even been to the US. Then he switches it up and goes, "Nah, I run my own company. I make big money. I can get you a job." And Breck believes him, like fully buys it. The police log the complaint, and that's kind of it. No real follow-up, no digging. And here's the part that makes you sick. If they had looked into Lewis properly, they would have seen he already had a record. When Lewis was like 15, he'd been arrested under suspicion of assaulting and raping another 15-year-old. The case didn't go anywhere, so he didn't get punished, but the arrest was there. It was visible. It wasn't a secret, so yeah. The police could have seen that, could have taken the Bednars seriously, could have stepped in. But nothing happens. And the family is left trying to fight this thing by themselves. Then February 2014 hits. Breck tells his parents he's sleeping over at a friend's house nearby. They're like, okay, cool. Normal teen stuff. But he's lying. He actually goes to Essex, like an hour and a half away, to Lewis's apartment. And they've never even met in person before, which is already terrifying, because you can picture how confident Lewis had to make him feel to get him to do that. That night, Lewis calls the police, and he says they got into an altercation and only one of them is alive. And then he just calmly explains what he did. "I grabbed the knife and stabbed him in the back of the neck, near the brainstem." And then he says he cut his throat. He tries to frame it like this messy struggle, like Breck threatened to hurt himself, like Lewis was trying to stop it and everything went wrong. But when police and paramedics get there, it's obvious he's lying. Breck is tied up, hands and feet bound with duct tape. There are signs of sexual activity, and the wound in his neck is so severe that there's basically no way there was any fight. It would have been seconds, no chance. And then they find out it wasn't random or accidental either. Lewis had bought duct tape and condoms a month before, like supplies, planning. He'd even given Breck a separate phone so they could talk without Breck's parents seeing it. And inside that phone is the grossest thing. Messages where Lewis is basically coaching Breck, telling him exactly what to say, how to lie, how to make sure his parents let him go out that night, step by step, like a script, and Breck kept the messages. So investigators can literally trace the whole thing back to Lewis, every breadcrumb. But it gets worse, guys. While the police are at the apartment and they're contacting Breck's parents to tell them their son is dead, Breck's siblings start getting messages from friends like, "Is it true? I'm so sorry." And the siblings haven't even been told yet. So they're sitting there like, "How do you know before we do?" Because Lewis told people. Before he even called the police after he killed Breck, he had time to clean up, take a shower, and take photos of Breck's body. Then he shared them with people online, like he was bragging, like it was some achievement. So the news spreads through kids and group chats and gaming circles. And Breck's siblings find out at basically the same time the police are downstairs telling their parents their son was murdered. Lewis eventually pleads guilty. There's too much evidence. It's clearly premeditated. He gets life. Minimum 25 years before parole is even a conversation. Afterward, Surrey police review how they handle online grooming reports. Breck's parents start the Breck Foundation to warn people about online predators. And Breck's mom says something that honestly sticks with you because it's the trap people fall into. She basically says, "Everyone thinks this only happens to the antisocial kids, the lonely ones, the weird ones." But Breck wasn't that. He was smart, loved, normal, and that didn't save him. And if you think the danger ends when you close the laptop, it doesn't. Sometimes the internet is just the introduction. And the next case is what happens when the person on the other side decides you're not allowed to leave. Alice Ruggles was one of those people who just felt bright. Like genuinely kind, funny, full of life. And she was only 24 when it all got cut short. She grew up in this really pretty little village in Leicestershire, near Market Harborough. Quiet place, close community, and her family was super tight-knit. She was the middle kid out of 4. Her parents, Dr. Sue Hills and Professor Clive Ruggles, were both deep in education and academia. Sue was actually the head of mathematics at Leicester High School for Girls, which is the same school Alice went to. And Alice had this huge thing for fencing. She first tried it on a school trip when she was 11, and it just clicked. She got seriously dedicated, trained constantly, and ended up becoming a county champion. In the East Midlands fencing scene, she was basically a known name. She trained and competed with different clubs, like Market Harborough Fencing Club, and she kept showing up in competitions representing her county in the East Midlands. She placed 4th in the Public Schools National Fencing Championship, won the Leeds Open in 2012. Like, she wasn't just good, she was legit. After school, she went to Northumbria University in Newcastle to study product design. Even there, fencing stayed a big part of her life. She became the ladies' captain, and she helped lead her team to qualify for the British universities and colleges' sport championships. After graduating, she started working at Sky in Newcastle, and everyone described her the same way. Professional, friendly, hilarious, just easy to be around. The kind of person who makes a room lighter without even trying. Then, early 2016, she gets briefly involved with this guy, Harry Dillon. He's a soldier in the British Army, with 2 Scots based around Penicuik near Edinburgh. They first connect online through a mutual acquaintance, while he's stationed in Afghanistan in a non-combat role. And that's the part that still feels unreal. Like in other cases we've covered, just a random online connection, a few messages, and suddenly a stranger has a doorway into your life. When he comes back to the UK, they meet in person and start spending time together in Newcastle and Edinburgh. And almost immediately, the vibe shifts. Because at first it looks like a new relationship, right? But Harry's behavior starts showing this weird, quiet kind of control. He expects her to always be available. He makes little comments about her appearance, subtle but mean, like the kind of criticism that's easy to brush off at first, until it keeps happening and it starts getting into your head. When he comes back permanently in April, he becomes intrusive. He'll show up without warning when she's out with friends. He'll pressure her to leave, to come with him, and you can kind of see what he's doing. He's trying to isolate her, cut her off from the people around her, slowly dismantle her support system without making it obvious. And it worked. At least for a while. Alice starts changing. The outgoing, lively version of her gets quieter, more withdrawn. She has tension with her housemates and ends up moving into a ground floor flat in Gateshead with a colleague. Her spark is dimmed. She's noticeably unhappy. Even her work starts getting affected. Her family sees her on a holiday and they're alarmed because they can tell she's not herself. Like there's this stark difference in her personality. Not long after, Alice finds out from another woman, someone Harry also met online, that he'd been unfaithful. Alice is devastated and ends the relationship. But Harry doesn't accept it. Not at all. Over the next weeks, he floods her with messages. And it's not consistent either. One minute it's desperate and pleading. The next minute it's angry and aggressive. He doesn't just contact Alice either. he contacts her friends and family too, trying to manipulate them into pressuring her to talk to him again. And as time goes on, it's not even about the relationship anymore. It turns into fixation. He starts using multiple phones and different email accounts to get around blocks. At one point, he's crying on the phone, threatening to hurt himself. Straight up emotional blackmail. And then there's the really disturbing part. He breaches her digital privacy. He gets into her social media accounts without permission. He uses what he finds to track her movements, and he threatens her with intimate images he got secretly. Like, he's not just harassing her, he's trying to control her through fear and humiliation. And when he finds out she's seeing someone new, he goes after that too. He starts a smear campaign, painting her as deceitful, trying to sabotage the new relationship. By late September, it escalates again. Now it becomes physical stalking. He hangs around her building, rings the doorbell, and disappears before she can answer. One time, he goes into her back garden, knocks on her window while she's in bed, then leaves flowers and chocolates behind like it's some twisted apology. And after that, he leaves this voicemail, this line that's just chilling. He says he doesn't want to kill her. And you hear that and you're like, why would you even say that? Why is that a sentence that needs to come out of your mouth? Alice is terrified, and she reports him to the police. They reassure her and issue a police information notice. A PIN, basically a formal warning that has no real legal weight. And even though she keeps calling back, clearly distressed, she isn't taken seriously. The worst part is when she calls again a week later to say the harassment is continuing, the officers don't even connect her report to the earlier one. It's like she's starting from zero every time. So Alice is left feeling like nobody is going to protect her. 3 days after the PIN is issued, Harry sends her a parcel. Inside is a letter that's manipulative and guilt-trippy and full of lies. He claims he's under disciplinary investigation because of her, and he includes little belongings and reminders of their time together, then says he'll disappear from her life. Alice still feels unsafe and calls the police again, but she's met with skepticism. There's no surviving record of that call, but it's a turning point for her. She starts taking extra precautions. Friends escort her home. She double-checks locks. She secures her flat like she's living under siege. Then, October 10th, without her knowing, Harry drives down from Edinburgh and quietly watches her place. He takes photos from behind the property. 2 nights later, he comes back. He waits nearby for her to get home from work. And at the same time, he's even messaging another woman, trying to set up plans for later that night. Like his brain is split between obsession and normal life, which somehow makes it creepier. Then he breaks in through a window. He's armed with a kitchen knife. He confronts Alice in the bathroom, and he attacks her. The injuries are fatal. Her flatmate Maxine finds the scene shortly after. And because Maxine reacts quickly, calls it in immediately, the police move fast. Harry Dillon is arrested at his barracks just hours later. He denies it, of course. Tries to act like it wasn't him. In court, he shows this disturbing lack of emotion, and he even claims Alice attacked him first. The jury doesn't buy it. He's convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 22 years. And when you step back, what comes through is this bigger, uglier pattern. Coercive control that escalates into stalking, and it often isn't recognized until it's too late. Alice initially thought he was protective, caring, like a lot of people do in the beginning. But really, he was systematically breaking her down, undermining her self-esteem, isolating her, trying to dominate every part of her life. He even tried to turn her own family against her. And her story is this brutal example of how stalking can start disguised as affection, then turn into obsession, and then end in violence. And the most disturbing part is, it's not rare. A lot of victims aren't taken seriously. Some stalkers stop after intervention, sure. But the ones who don't, the ones who escalate like Harry did, are the highest risk. People describe that kind of stalking as murder in slow motion, and as awful as that sounds, it fits. After Alice's death, her family became outspoken advocates for change. They founded the Alice Ruggles Trust to raise awareness about stalking and push for reform, basically to make sure what happened to her doesn't happen again. One thing I keep seeing when I research cases is this pattern. A jealous ex gets dumped, their ego takes a hit, and then it turns violent. Like they can't handle being rejected, so they try to punish the person for it. Molly McLaren was a student at the University of Kent in the UK. She was studying exercise and health, loved animals, and she had big plans. She wanted a career in fitness. She was 23, she had her whole life mapped out, and then she met a guy on Tinder. A guy who, honestly, was a ticking time bomb. In July 2016, Molly swiped right on a 24-year-old guy named Joshua Stimson. They talked for months, and by November, they finally met up in person. They dated for about 4 months, but by early 2017, Molly was already trying to end it because Josh started acting off. He'd show up at her house when he wasn't invited, when she didn't want to see him, just appear like he had a right to her time. And here's the terrifying part. Josh wasn't just clingy. He was a manipulator with a history. Molly didn't know this. This was her first serious relationship. But with previous girlfriends, he'd spit in their faces, slash tires, stalk them, threaten to kill them. Some of it got reported to police, but nothing really happened. Josh talked his way back in, apologized, promised he'd change. And yeah, people like that almost never do. They got back together briefly, but on June 17th, 2017, they're out celebrating Molly's birthday. They end up in a hotel room, an argument breaks out, and in the middle of it, Josh starts recording her. Which, honestly, is such a creepy power move. It just makes her angrier. And that's when Molly finally snaps into it. She's done. She ends the relationship, and that should have been the end. But that's when it turns sinister. On June 20th, Josh goes to Asda and buys a paring knife. Then he goes to home base and buys a pickaxe. Like, just calmly shopping for weapons. Not long after that, Molly's out shopping with her mom when her cousin calls her. Josh has been posting photos and statements on Facebook, claiming Molly was doing cocaine. He's tagging her in it. The photos were fake, but that doesn't even matter, because the point wasn't truth. The point was humiliation, making her look bad, making her panic that her family would believe it. And Molly had already seen vague threats he'd posted after the breakup. Stuff like, "There's more to come," which is one of those lines that doesn't sound like much, until you realize it's basically a promise. On June 22nd, Molly goes to the police with her mom and tells them what he's doing. While she's there, an officer calls Josh on speakerphone, basically trying to scare him off. He says something like, "We wouldn't want Molly to have to come back to the station again, would we?" And Josh, arrogant as hell, goes, "Wouldn't we?" Like he's enjoying it. By June 27th, Josh agrees to take the post down, but he doesn't stop. June 28th, Molly goes to a pub with friends, and suddenly Josh walks in, with another girl, and it's not a coincidence. Molly and her friends had blocked him, so Josh manipulated another girl into adding Molly, just so he could see Molly's posts and track where she'd be. That's how he finds her. At first, Molly isn't terrified. She thinks he's being childish, creepy, but not dangerous. At the pub, he just stares at her and her friends the entire time, like he's trying to remind her, "I'm still here." Then June 29th comes. Molly posts this optimistic photo on Instagram. Just a normal post, like she's trying to move on. It ends up being the last thing she ever uploads. That morning she goes to the gym early, like she always does, and Josh knows her routine. He expects her there. He walks into the gym and starts working out in the same place as her, like it's normal. Molly is furious. She asks him why he's following her. And then she starts messaging her friends and her mom, telling them he's there. She texts a friend that she feels like she's always looking over her shoulder. Then she calls her mom, and her mom tells her, "Come home. Get away from him." Molly agrees. She heads out to the car park, and Josh follows her, and somewhere in his head he's choosing the moment, like he's been waiting for the right time to do it, and he decides, this is it. Josh brought the weapons he'd bought days earlier. Molly gets into her car in the driver's seat, and Josh yanks the door open and starts stabbing her over and over. Molly fights as hard as she can. She's honking the horn, trying to get anyone's attention. A passerby named Benjamin Morton hears the noise and runs over. He tries to pull Josh away, but there's so much blood his hands are literally slipping. He slams the car door into Josh's leg, trying to stop him, trying to block him, trying to do anything. It doesn't work. Josh climbs into the car and locks the door, and keeps going. Benjamin later says, in court, something that's hard to forget. He looks inside and he can see her throat is cut, and he said Josh didn't look like someone in a panic. He looked determined, like he wasn't even stabbing anymore. He was cutting her throat to make sure she wouldn't come back, and Benjamin has this moment where he realizes there's nothing he can do. She isn't going to survive. Josh had cut through Molly's jugular veins and major arteries. He even damaged bone in her neck. She was stabbed 75 times. Benjamin then gets into his own car and blocks Josh's car so he can't drive away while other witnesses call the police. When the police arrive, Josh eventually steps out. He wipes the blood from his face, calmly, and just hands himself over. Paramedics arrive, but the injuries are too severe. Molly is pronounced dead at 11:43 a.m. During the trial, Josh tries to get it reduced to manslaughter, claiming diminished responsibility because of bipolar disorder. The jury rejects it. And then you hear from his exes, and it gets even darker because it's like, this wasn't a sudden snap. This was a trajectory. One ex, Alexandria Dale, talks about how he would follow her, take photos of her, question what she wore. He took a photo of her in her back garden with a threatening message attached. He threatened to drown her on holiday. Another ex says he spat on her in a nightclub after they split up, then waited outside for hours like a predator, just watching for her to leave. On February 6, 2018, Josh is sentenced to life in prison, with no parole consideration for 26 years. After Molly's death, her friends and family set up the Molly McLaren Foundation donation page. They raised thousands for charity. Molly had struggled with bulimia for years, so the money went to charities helping people with eating disorders. In total, £15,000 was raised. And it's terrifying, because people like Josh, they exist everywhere. And cases like this aren't rare. Looking at his past behavior, it honestly feels like he was inching toward murder for a long time. So yeah, if nothing else, I hope stories like Molly's make people notice the red flags earlier. Because sometimes that's the difference between someone getting out and someone not getting the chance. Thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. I know these stories are heavy, but I really appreciate you being here and listening. If you want more videos like this, drop a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What country should I cover next? Which one do you think has the most disturbing cases? Take care.